using data to build climate resilient cities in Pakistan. It's an incredible privilege for me to invite today to have on the panel participants who have demonstrated and dedicated commitment to the cause of climate change and public service. We have with us Secretary Planning Commissions, Secretary Ministry of Development, Ministry of Planning, Development and Special Initiative. He has over 30 years of experience in working in one of the most climate affected and vulnerable areas in Pakistan. He started his service as on the district level in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Later he served in Pakistan. He has also served in the earthquake reconstruction authority, and more recently he was with the Ministry of Finance as Special Secretary for Climate Finance, and right now he's serving as Secretary for the Ministry of Planning, which is the Apex Authority for Long-Term Planning, and is responsible for public sector development projects in Pakistan. We are also honored to have with us Lieutenant General Inam Hedman, the Chairman of the National Disaster Management Authority, and he has had a long career and he has served in the field and has had operationally commanded infantry divisions along the Pakistan border in Balochistan and also in areas, in some of the most remote areas which are underserved and most affected by disaster risk. On panel, we have Dr. Asif Zia. Dr. Asif Zia is the Director of the Institute of Environmental Policy, Diplomacy and Security at the University of Vermont, and he's a Professor of Public Policy and Computer Science at the university. We also have with us Dr. Masdir Desi. He is working on he is in Virginia Tech. He serves as he's working on the intersection of sociology and how data science impacts food and water systems. Both Dr. Mars and Dr. Asif Zia have been involved extensively in National Science Foundation projects by the government of the United States, and they are also principal investigators for projects funded by the Department of United States Agriculture. And their research looks at how data science can better inform our response to disaster risk management and also inform the planning process. So I will start the panel with my first question to Alessa. Please, so the Ministry of Planning and Development has initiated data governance, has initiated work on data governance, and we have a large amount of many organizations in the country like Pakistan Bureau of Statistics and National Disaster Management Authority and SUPARCO. So there is a large amount of data available to commission a lot of projects on the radar. A lot of it is working inside. My question to you is, what is the ministry doing to bring the organizations together?
Thank you very much. Thank you to be a part of this distinguished panel on the important topic for the Ministry of Planning and Development. As all of you know, Pakistan suffered a catastrophic floods last year in 2022, which resulted in substantial damages to property. And those floods actually were due to the effects of climate change. And to take forward the process of reconstruction and rehabilitation after those floods, the Ministry of Planning and Economic Affairs has put its hands together to develop projects for improving the overall resilience and infrastructure of the country. part of the umbrella project which is funded by the World Bank. It's a $400 million umbrella project. So the subcomponent of that project is the improvement of the hardware sensors in Pakistan. So the subcomponent is the improvement of hardware services in Pakistan, which is a $50 million project, which is about equivalent to 15 billion rupees. As part of that, and that project actually is based on a national disaster management plan which was developed by JICA very recently, with the aim of improving the forecasting, seasonal forecasting, weather forecasting, flood forecasting in the country. And the purpose is actually to assist in better long-term planning as far as the forecasting and then taking actions to prevent the consequences of climate change. So as part of that project, actually we held a workshop last week which was attended by the panelists here as well from the University of Vermont and Virginia Tech. And we are planning to actually set up an interagency data sharing framework. That workshop was a very successful event in which we had representation from not only the Ministry of Planning but also from the Education Ministry, which covers the Met Department as well. We had representation from NADRA in that workshop, from Suparco, and from the Lungs University in Lahore, and other relevant departments and entities. So after a lot of deliberations, there is now a consensus that there should be some sort of interagency data sharing framework and governance structure in place, which should put together all the data, which should collect all the data, which should store it and then disseminate it properly, not only for long-term planning but also for short-term impact advisories. So as a result of that workshop, the details will be mentioned, I'm sure, by my fellow panelists here. As a result of that workshop, now we have an action plan in place and we have a consensus on the way forward. And the Ministry of Planning will be coordinating all the activities along with the relevant ministry and NDRA, which are the relevant entities for data sharing and taking it forward. So I will just stop here and I can hand over to the panelists.
Thank you very much, Secretary Saab. This is very strong commitment on the government of, on behalf of the government of Pakistan for using data to inform our response to disaster and also informing climate responsive development. So I will now, my second question is to Dr. Asim Jia, who recently had started this initiative and led an intensive workshop in Islamabad with more agencies involved. What kind of a governance framework do you foresee that we need to bring more climate resilience and improve our impact and benefits?
Well, thank you very much. I'm really honored to be here. It's really a pleasure to be part of this project. So before I get to the data governance side of it, I think it's very important to understand the impact advisories. What do we mean by impact advisories? And I think traditionally the first generation multi-hazard early warning systems really focused on communicating like flood forecasts or drought forecasts either to the government agencies or to the people. But they did not include the information which we call as like the early action or anticipatory action information that was part of that. More recently, as a result of a lot of the research about last year, I was part of UN Secretary General's Early Warning for All initiative, programming under a World Met Organization program, and we kind of like learned through a synthesis of the existing early warning systems across the planet that early warning systems can be made more effective if we include early action information into that. So from early action, the early actions can be taken at different forecasting times. Those could be in the span of day to like seconds or days to weeks and months. All of it from like a seasonal to annual scale early actions. And then there are like long-term forecast lead times, like for example in the case of climate change, we're talking about annual to decadal and even like a centennial scale planning. So for example, the infrastructure planning like the transportation, bridges, critical infrastructure also include transmission systems, grid systems. They involve like long-term planning. And how do you integrate those long-term planning into your early warning, early action systems? That is a critical focus in terms of, especially for vulnerable countries like Pakistan, which are on the front lines of the extreme events like floods and droughts and heat waves and other extreme events. So, including sea level rise, which are slow onset events, but for example, you need to build the infrastructure for that. So, the question is that, like to what extent currently the Pakistan's agencies, the operational agencies are integrating early warning with the early action information. Can we translate that into impact advisory? So for that we need to have impact-based decision support systems that would basically at operational scale generate those early warnings and for all the hazards that are going to be happening with more frequently and with more intensity over the time. So as part of the impact advisories, as per the workshop, that we decided that one of the issues that Secretary Sahib mentioned that we were looking at a lot of these, that we need to have more urgent need to improve the geographical and locational resolution of impact advisories. So right now the impact advisories are issued probably at the district level, but we need to have more like at the population household scale level. If we can have that information, that would save the lives of many people. We also needed to have better quantification of the social, economic, and environmental impacts of hydromet services. And I can get into a lot more details maybe in the later half of this. But in terms of the data governance structure, for us to build the capacity in Pakistan for generating those impact advisories, action A versus action B. So in that context, the two data governance architectures that emerged in our discussion. One is focused on that we can create a new entity with a mandate to acquire, store, and screen all available data from relevant agencies, ensure scalability and interoperability, cybersecurity, and digital privacy. So also like an existing entity, for example, Planning Commission or NDMA would also be designated as a lead for this interagency data and model sharing portal. But we need to have a hub that can manage all the spokes where the data is being generated in terms of the forecast, but also the monitoring data can be integrated back into the forecast in order to improve the forecast through active learning processes. The second model that we talked about was the empowering existing operational agencies. That especially includes Pakistan Met Department, NDMA, SPARCO, and maybe the Global Change Impact Study Center, because they've also been engaged in the long-term climate impact forecasting. So to empower these agencies and the operational agencies by hazard type within their jurisdictional mandate to establish data sharing hubs, each of which will be responsible for governing their data acquisition and dissemination processes. So specific standards and protocols can be enforced by a centralized agency like Planning Commission that must be followed by each operational agency. So we need to have some kind of like a standards-based approach where all the metadata and differential privacy standards are imposed in that framework. So I think I'll stop here and we can discuss a little bit more detail as we move forward. I'm also interested in getting to what people have to say about this.
Thank you, Dr. Asim. So it's essential that data sharing protocols have to be put into place. And for them to be timely shared with across all agencies, we may have to work towards automation of those responses. And there would be a two-way data sharing. Something that we share with Flood Commission with us. So it's going to be developing a system also automating. Yes.
So yeah, thank you for bringing out, I was in the interest of time not getting into the details, but yes, integration of automation, active learning, integration of artificial intelligence technologies in that automation. So for example, we're looking at harnessing, for example, satellite data sets for prediction of floods and droughts and validation of the forecast against those monitoring data that is coming from the satellites, but also the gauge data sets. So the focus on automation is very important because that would make it easier given in terms of the capacity and the institutionalization of these processes, so that we can continue to build capacity on maintaining those automated systems and ensuring their improvements in the accuracy and training the workforce that can actually do that, as opposed to going through the old system of like manual process-based modeling and just parameterizing and testing those. So I think like this focus on automation and AI would actually help Pakistan to leapfrog from the very old system to very, very new system, which would set us up for really good climate resilience responses.
My next question is to Dr. Mans. You using AI and data science. What do you think are the risks and the benefits of using AI and data science and such technologies for the impact of platforms?
Thank you, and I appreciate all the comments. And thank you for everyone for being here. So, this is good. Everybody hear me? Okay, so I'm going to try and speak louder as well. Is this okay? So I want to kind of bring this conversation down to the community level, because I think all of these are great ideas, but what does data mean? Data means very different things when it comes to the community. Okay, and so I'm going to sort of like bring it down from that 10,000 levels down to like the 500 or maybe 5 centimeter level. So a few months ago, I was in Pakistan, thanks to the Mountain Glacier Protection Organization that basically organized a trip for me and some of my researchers to go and visit some villages in the tall mountains of the Karakoram range. And those communities are about, there's a village that I visited, his name is Toldi. And some of the first people in Toldi, they told me, I asked them questions about early warning and early hazard systems. I was like, how do you know that there's a flood that's about to come? And they said that there are these loud sounds that come from the mountains. So I said, okay, and then what happens? How much time do you have to evacuate? They said 2 hours. So by the time they start hearing the noise, they have 2 hours to evacuate. And I want that to sink in. Imagine if that warning was given to us right now. If we're not even at home, we could possibly live somewhere. But if you were at your home and you have to move out in 2 hours, and if that sound comes in the middle of the night, there is absolutely no way to do it. But here's the key, and I want to paint a good picture and connect it back to data governance in a second. It shows that the community is connected to the environment. And we can take importance of that and use that to build very interesting AI models. 2 reasons. Number one, satellites have different orbiting systems, different orbiting paths. They don't actually go through the same part of the Earth. And they also have different temporal frequencies. Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2 goes over its orbital path every 6 to 12 days. So the time when a flood comes, the satellite isn't really standing there and taking those images. So one of the things that you could do is you can connect local knowledge about how they understand flood warnings, and you can use that to refocus the satellite. So there's all interesting things that can be done by combining the knowledge that the community has with the knowledge that Superco has, or NASA has, or people like Asif and that, really smart, intelligent people can work with these communities and develop interesting data governance systems that work for the community. The second thing is that by involving the community, you're actually bringing them as part of the core design process. You're bringing them as collaborators into these development of these models. Right? So like you're kind of engaging them in the process of engineering itself. So I feel like there are lots of different opportunities. When we think about data at the community level, we should pay attention to the local knowledge that people have and try to connect it to this amazing scientific knowledge that we can develop using AI. Going back to, I don't know if I should stop there and then come back to the rest of the benefits there. Is that okay?
You raised a very important point that the communities have only 2 hours to respond. We talk a whole lot about climate justice, and climate justice, the way it's framed internationally, is that the larger emitters are developed countries, and they should, through legals like loss and damage, they should pay reparations to developing countries who are not exposures in climate change. There's another definition of climate change, one definition of justice. Justice is when a disaster could have been avoided and you could have done it and you did not do it, that is also climate injustice. So if we have the right advisories at a domestic level, we don't have to look at that justice only internationally in terms of regulations from internal climate finance or regulations. So if we respond timely, that is also providing justice to the communities. Essentially, to give them enough time to meet proper advice. This brings me to most importantly, Chairman, National Disaster Management Authority. How should you describe the operational capabilities of NDMA to monitor the impact of extreme events? And how do you think the remaining gaps can be improved?
Thank you very much. And I guess most of the things which have been, okay, most of the topics that we have started discussing about, I think part of it has already been accomplished in Pakistan. Recently, we are looking at our learning curve from the last disasters in the last 10 years or so. We have transformed the initial phase of becoming more proactive from reactive organization and the national regime of disaster management is also a way of major reforms. To do that, we erected a system of
Can you hear us all right?
I think his mic is not working. I can hear because I'm sitting at front.
okay, if we are audible, I think we can
Mic is not working.
C'est beau de dire que des gens qui sont branchés dans les énergies, des ateliers-là,
Actually, if we go to the next room, we'll get better.
But then we have to speak in French. Okay. Is it good now? Right, in the context of our proactive disaster management in Pakistan, what we have accomplished is our recently commissioned National Emergency Operations Center. And that actually collates all information and intelligence requirements in the disaster. It's being fed by a host of sectors of climate intelligence from NASA, Jordan, our deep countries in the world. And then it has over 129 web monitoring software and structures. Now the importance of data sharing that we have been able to incorporate from the various government departments, from flood commissions, forest irrigation departments, Pakistan Bureau of Statistics and other social departments. All of this data is being collected at that place. And now we are going to bring it in one format from where it is more usable. Now the aim of this capability is to have ability to protect our models of disasters and in the future, and also to have the ability to pre-calculate our needs before time. Because if we can determine, as of now we have to calculate about 4 to 6 weeks in advance, like we are now focusing on calculations of our disasters of February 2024, and looking at our global, our north, wherever there's loss activity, our loss of snow eventing would be becoming more critical for Pakistan. Secondly, the ability to predict these disasters, we have a fair reliability factor of calculating our effects of losses and damages. We exercised this with the last 2 or 3 local disasters in Punjab, our coastal areas on our hurricane, cyclone, and then we had out of proportion flooding in our first dry rivers and Supraj and Chenab. So we had these opportunities of calculating and then alarming and alerting the people in time, and then we were able to evacuate about 90,000 people from coastline without casualty, and then 800,000 people. So this morning when we compared this with our post-disaster effect, images is a
now, whatever estimates that we made and what early warning we have, it is going to provide us with a buffer time or cushion period between us and the disaster. So if that cushion period is prolonged, probably a regular data updation would also be required as we approach to these disasters. And as it was shown that the government is fully committed to absorb this capacity and utilize it. We are in the process of sharing our data together, and that one proof of national emergency operations center we have the collage of all organizations, all NGOs. We are needs. We are passing them on to our organizations, international NGOs, and our donor partners, so that they can also build their estimates of risk financing by requiring those situations.
Thank you very much, Jim. A role that the Planning Commission can play over here is that we approve a large number of projects. The High Court, for example, covers now the western belt of Pakistan, and we've got radars, and we've also commissioned radars in the Multan. So as a part of these approval of these projects, we have built, and we are now going to be building in data governance and linkage mechanisms requiring the projects to support those parameters, and that is something that would be working on, and Sal may talk more about how that commissioning your projects and make it mandatory to have the right parameters and how we can work with the team so that we can address future data gaps.
Yes, thank you very much. So, as you very rightly pointed out, the Planning Commission is actually the lead agency in the government which is responsible for approving all the projects in all the sectors. It is also responsible for whether the projects are received in the Planning Commission. They go through a very detailed process of appraisal, and we provide feedback. We have technical expertise, and we provide feedback to all the agencies which prepare the documents, the documents, and we provide feedback to them. So, as far as climate is concerned and the disaster and resilience area, building in all these things into our Planning Commission, we have very recently revised the manual of development projects, and we have climate toolkit. We are also we have prepared this handbook on climate risk screening, which is actually in the pilot stage, and then once we are sure of its utility, we will be taking it to the Central Working Group Party for its formal approval. So basically, we are actually now introducing the climate aspects into all our projects, so that all climate aspects are fully tagged and reliable, and then we are also trying to collect data on all the projects. I think this action going on where we are looking at all the projects to see how they link with the national adaptation plan and also with the DCs, and we are trying to see how our projects are actually helping in this regard. So it was all about implementing the climate resilience, climate proof of all the projects, and to collect all the data from all the various project documents which are coming into the Planning Commission. And I'm sure that data also will be very helpful as we move forward in our further work.
Jim mentioned that MOCC is already working on collating data, and we can use cloud provision data and the data that is coming out from online from newer projects to address their activities, to further refine our models. And I'm now back to ask on how can we address data gaps. And you talked about downscaling, downscale forecasts at not just a district level but a household level. How can that be done in a manner that the data remains secure? And because that is census data as well as Pakistan Bureau of Statistics. So there are going to be concerns around aggregation, anonymization, and security of data, and that would help organizations share data more comfortably. That would
Thank you very much for this question. I think I just want to go back to first what Maz was saying, that the importance of bringing down the, building off of what we were talking about to the community scale, to the household scale, but also integrating the indigenous knowledge of these communities back into the data streams. So typically the good practice is to have this kind of like a two-way interaction. So one is that the government agencies communicate to the people and to the local communities. But there are also crowdsourcing technologies from where we could get the information from the local communities and feed them back into the models as a way to understand exactly, to do the forecast. But especially in the disasters, our goal at the acute level, like the short to medium term disasters, the goal is to protect the vulnerable people who don't have the capacity to move out of the way of the harm. So I think for that reason, it's very essential that we do go downscale to the community scale in order to connect the larger, broader policy frameworks in terms of the action at the community level. So having established that need, now the question is can we establish privacy and data security given all of those considerations in terms of not only horizontal sharing of the data, but also the vertical sharing of the data generation processes from the community scales, but also two-way interactions between the government agencies and the citizens. So in that sense, there are what we have in the University of Vermont, we have a Center for Cybersecurity. They have developed very cutting-edge AI-generated differential privacy algorithms. So in the differential privacy algorithms, what you can do is you could, for example, say there is a very sensitive data that is with the statistics division, that is all the GPS coordinates of the households or the critical infrastructure. But those could be that could be only made available to the modeler, to the operational agencies. But the operational agencies, when they make the impact forecast, they do not have to share the raw data. Rather, the operational agencies just have the data that is sensitive and made accessible by the host or the hub agency, right? So the hub can manage differential access to that data based on their need for modeling, for forecasting, for active learning. At the same time, the hub can also make sure that the crowdsourced data comes back into that hub, so for further dissemination and integration with the models and for active learning processes. So I think data kind of privacy, differential privacy is the easy answer to this. The problem, the more challenging problem is the hacking of the systems and also the data poisoning. So I just want to say a couple of comments about the hacking. The hacking happens is that, even national security agencies like NSA in the US, their algorithms for cybersecurity were hacked by some, we don't know who hacked them, right? So there were some hackers situated apparently in Ukraine, but we don't know whether they were linked with China or with Russia. So those kind of hacking, for those kind of cybersecurity algorithms and cybersecurity practices, those involve not only the hardware systems, but also include the software systems that actually manage those hardware systems. So it is the only way that hackers can succeed in those kind of actions, which are going deep into those beyond 2 or 3 layers of security. For that, they need to get some kind of access to the people who have access to those passwords. So the training of the people who are sitting on those secure data sets is very, very essential, that they actually do not give away or be not be caught by any phishing or phishing. So these are all different things. You might have heard about even the QR codes can be used to the phishing these days, which is the question. So I think the other part is the data poisoning. The data poisoning is where someone can get into the system and then actually change the underlying data set that's there in your server. Or change or send some kind of as part of this upstream or downstream processing, some kind of virus that can go into the system and change the data set. So I think the data poisoning, to fight against that, we need to have very advanced algorithms which are basically cryptographers can design them based on the data flow and the data algorithms that happen. So I think there are technologies that exist that we can do it, but as my collaborator there, who's the director of the Center for Cybersecurity, Chris Kalka, is a professor and chair of the computer science He says that there is no perfect algorithm that exists for cybersecurity because there's always, because of the underlying algorithmic problems that we have. I'd also say like what is coming in the next, like we are looking at the quantum computing revolution is coming anytime soon, and it's already starting to happen. So quantum computers are going to change the scope, the scale of not only the data processing, but also the hacking and the cybersecurity challenge issues would be challenged because the existing algorithms cannot fend against or deal with these kind of like quantum computing scale like interventions in the systems. So I think it is going to be an evolving system. So we need to have a dynamic data system and team building process which will lead to more state of the art, and we need to have the people trained all the time for sitting on display are aware of the latest technologies that could be upgraded, right? So you get the version 1, but then the next week you get version 1.1. So it's like by the end of the year we have like version 2.52. So it's just like very fast process, very fast evolving system, and we need to become nimble in terms of like understanding like what's going on across the world in that space.
Governance response and governance institutions have to be in place so that we can keep up with changing models and keep moving the capacities. And the hub and spoke model that you talked about, the centralized agency that is responsible for collating, that will be essential. And then naturally the use of this data for different organizations will be for NDMA it would be impact advisories in case of disaster. For the Ministry of Planning it would be for planning long-term projects. And for the Agriculture Department it would be planning the cropping patterns. And this would now bring me to Dr. Mars. Your research focuses heavily on how data science can inform and improve precision agriculture. So if you could elaborate on that.
Sure, but before I do that, can I just respond quickly and add something to what Dr. Zia just said? So, and I also pose this as a paradox to the government, because I think some of the best ideas for the government are likely to come from outside the government. Okay, and I'll sort of elaborate on that in just a moment. But I'm kind of pushing this idea of open data because I think this is where eventually we will go towards. It's very centralized, right? So that we can have a command and control system. It has differential privacy, but then it's also open. And why does it make sense for the government to be in charge of this open data? I'll give you 4 reasons. One is because the government works for the interest of the citizens. It has a lot of data, not necessarily organized very well, so that's somewhere where artificial intelligence can help us fuse all the different data sets together. Number 2, the government, citizens are also interested in the things that the government has to provide, such as healthcare, crime and other things, so they're more likely to share that data with the government. And thirdly, which is probably most important for open data, is that the citizens can also be involved in designing applications that through the use of that open data, right? So whether those are applications for like, how do I navigate the best route to go from this to this part of the city, which has least amount of traffic, you can outsource that to a 20-year-old person sitting in Karachi or Lahore, and they'll be able to make it for you in 10 days for like $500. And if you do the same for a large company, you send it outside, it's going to cost you a lot more. So open data is also great for the economy and development, right? So I think what's going to happen eventually with this sort of data that this team is generating over here, which is supposedly for early warning, early action, is going to create an impetus towards other economic development as well in the long term. So I would encourage these groups also to think broadly. The idea of how can this lead to entrepreneurship. Anyway, sorry. Going back to your question, so my work is mostly on digital agriculture. I'm very much interested in climate smart farming. I work with Dr. Asim and my team and other people who are agronomists and engineers and you name it. What we try to do is we take these models, these physics-based models that have been sitting and been running with equations that have been driven by science over the last 50 years, and we try to improve it because science has made rapid progress, but these models that are used to understand carbon and nutrient cycling and atmosphere reactions with soil, those models are still very, very archaic. So what we try to do is, and Dr. Asif and other people, they try to develop these models so that they are more in line with the science of the 21st century. And that is important for precision agriculture because these models can help farmers understand how much nutrients to use, how much water they should be using. So it saves a lot of money for the farmer, it's better for the environment, and it's great especially for using open data. A lot of the models are being trained on data that is openly available and some of it is freely available. Thanks to Working Space Industry Program, NASA's program. And in fact, if you're interested, NASA has in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, in collaboration with USAID and USDA, has come up with a program which basically focuses on the mountain regions of Pakistan as well. So it is based in Isomode, primarily. Do you know the name? Surveyor. Right, Surveyor is the name, so you should look it up. If you're looking for open data, that's a great way of doing regional work. Not focusing on Pakistan, focusing on 6-7 different countries, just share hydrological, have same hydrological boundaries, share glaciers, a lot of active learning happening in that space as well. But do you want, is that enough for Precision Ag?
Thank you for ideas for presentation and service recruitment, bringing in entrepreneurs, students, improving quality of research. So that is essential and that's the should be more broadly about this. And your insights and feedback would continue to work with you to bring in the institute, the data governance framework that we have applied to the world so that we have more progress and opportunities to I'll let you do the last round of questions and then conclude.
So, before I go to the panelists, does anyone in the audience have any questions about the discussion so far? So, if you have a question, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I'll ask questions. Mariam.
Thank you. I think there is a lot to be learned in this session actually. So my question would be very basic that who would be like trained personnel? Have you guys worked on that to train the people working in Pakistani agencies like GCISC and rest of the people, because you mentioned that the technology and the modeling techniques are constantly evolving, especially when it comes to computation system or something you mentioned. Training of the personnel.
Yes, very interesting work we were developing to develop early warnings. We found out that there are more than 2 dozens of universities and institutes in Pakistan who develop this kind of HR annually. There are many thousand people who have been trained. Unfortunately, they have not been applied or employed in those kinds of projects, building these type of software. There's a large quantum of these people that there are capacities that are utilized by NDMA and this opportunity by having those people identified that they are applying technologies, algorithms, technologies, they are artificial intelligence and machine learning experts, and we have a lot of delegates. We have also selected from our NGOs. These are the NGOs which have trained these men are, and they have got information by coordinated projects. So we are now targeting them part of the national agency. They are also working in developing global projects and involving disaster prediction, creating new warnings, and also calculating the needs and losses over time. There's a large capacity which is resident in Pakistan, but we are also trying to reach out to our global partners too. As the information on the climate intelligence, mostly the data is unclassified and it should be unclassified, right? Because it has to be applied in the social domain. Because the early warning capabilities are now determining the most vulnerable areas, and they are exactly quantifying the specific impact areas of disaster. So we would just be worried about like hundreds and thousands of people and not related to correct identifications. But now the capacity of this accumulation in Pakistan has reached to that extent where they are exactly able to quantify and
different age groups. Like this is the impact area of a vulnerable community. How many people are in different age groups, the backgrounds, and of very famous livelihoods. It makes a lot of losses in development and operation of these communities. So there is ability in the human resources abundance.
Just very quickly, in the public sector, they organization of the network. So that project 15 million that has a very large component on capacity building and distribution strategy. And we plan to have programs under that project as well from the public sector organizations which are relevant to this one.
Janissa, you said that there's a critical mass that we have a professional population that is developing, and there are students who are well trained on data science and geologics. So, the Planning Commission approves these higher education mission projects. We could perhaps design a comprehensive program, not a four-year program, but a one-year program on top of an existing degree, a data science degree, and then open the interfaces, provide academic interfaces to this data that they are collating, so that they are trained on it and they can do their thesis on it. This could be structured in a manner that it could take back on already existing projects that are going on in and us seem to have a harmonious for this.
Yeah, so exactly that's what I was going to say, that we were recently, I think last year, we started an initiative under the USA funded project. That's called HESET, like the Higher Education System Strengthening Activity. It's about a $20 million project. But one small component of that project is to set up a climate resilience research coordination network in Pakistan. And the goal of that research coordination network is to have like this kind of like a research to operations and operations to research interaction going on, where we can build the capacity in the university school, have that data science and software engineering, but also like software sciences, and aspects of like understanding that what data we can make open versus what data needs to be sensitive data that needs to be stored. So all of those kind of things can be made like integral in collaboration between the government agencies and the universities. So I think like there is a lot of work that we can do as part of that exercise, that there is an opportunity in Pakistan to get the partnership between the government agencies, especially the operational agencies and think tanks with the universities. So under the HESET project, there were about 80 universities, but unfortunately that does not include us because they have like systematically and geographically dispersed. Right, so with the higher education division we can do it. I think there was a few more steps. So there is one question from there, and I saw one question there. And I also want to recognize we have Dr. Amira sitting there because I've been working in the Nile River Basin. She's the Deputy Director of the Egyptian Met Department, and she's also doing a lot of work in terms of flood forecasting, and in fact they have also a lot of data governance practices also doing kind of like learning that can happen across the river basin as well. So if you can just help me.
So my question, I think NPMA is doing a great job. Since its inception, we have seen that it's disaster. But the climate change, I think, I think in relative terms, it's a new phenomenon. People are struggling with it because climate change is everywhere. So coming from what we do from gender perspective, I see that I see a huge need at NDMA to prioritize it because there is a disconnect between policy trickling down to the grassroots level and engaging the community, especially the women. So my question is that what steps from climate change perspective expedite the financial transfer. And we work with CRA, that is Climate Resilience for All. Representing CRA, and it was CRA that I was able to come here, and we had a session in a near pavilion. So, because we need to very quickly respond to it. It is very dangerous for everyone, and my question is how we can facilitate civil society, because it cannot happen only with private and public. Civil society is a very important component to expedite, to facilitate, to bridge the gap. And we can take this step to expedite, to facilitate, because you know the context, and you know the difficulties, the hardship, and climate change is asking for very fast steps. So that is what my concern is. And we have to, again, we must learn from the communities where we are working and coming up with their ideas which are compatible, the solutions which are compatible and which are relevant to them, and how more and more partnership can be encouraged, more and more, and then it is like not only theoretical level, but it's practical step. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you very much for this question. And we are already engaging lots of programs at the community level. We understand the first and second tier responders in Pakistan are the district and the provincial domains, but MPA and federal government is not. When we are going into the proactive disaster management, we are reaching out to all genders and all ethnic communities in a big way. We have conducted 3 national level exercises, simulation exercises in AP, Balochistan and around the Punjab. We have also included our local academia like universities, the local NGOs, who are working in that area, the community elders, the private sector, and as well as the industry of that area. So that all of these groupings, they can sit together and find a solution for the local village or an area which is affected by the disaster. That kind of approach will make local solutions more workable. We have made this cluster of this knowledge hub at many locations which are primarily more vulnerable in Pakistan. We started from saying we reached out to northern areas of Pakistan, and now in Balochistan we connected. It's not a workshop, it's a full spectrum exercise where everybody is involved, from the military, law enforcement, our social sector domains. And then we are also collecting lots of data on our affected communities, from the people of different age groups, women and children differently, and also disabled and more vulnerable communities alike. And we are trying to document their needs, and we are trying to pre-calculate their needs for the next disaster whenever it can unfortunately strike. With that kind of exercise, the academia is now in a big way. The local universities in Balochistan and Sindh, they are taking care of lots of policy recommendations and the actions that can be done at the local district level, and we are providing those responses and information to the family elders, like reaching out to the people through the mosques and every place of worship. We are trying to communicate this message of risk awareness, risk communication, and risk vulnerability to those people who are living in the most remote areas of Pakistan, from Balochistan, from northwestern areas. So hopefully, with the passage of time, we will be able to put lots of information from top-down approach from India to the districts, and then collect the responses and feedback for a better review from bottom-up approach from the district and villages going out to the country. Thank you very much.
So we have one more question, but in the interest of time, just keep it very brief. We have only 3 minutes. That is the time to respond.
Thank you. I will be very brief. The question is basically more on you mentioned about the data sharing protocol. The Jerusalem is also here. The question is the Mapping Act 2016 by the Survey of Pakistan, and then following the National Spatial Data Bank in NSDI was supposed to be established. The NSDI is still on the way. And secondly, the mapping act is restricting some of the data informatics to play with it, especially for the researchers and donors and the civil societies. I would request that Pakistan, what are the initiatives, especially the NEC is now coming on the ground, how they will basically react to that mapping act, open the ways for the civil society, for the researcher and the people who work on the spatial data.
So I think I'll try to hit also last mention open science. The thing is like open science is a double-edged sword, right? So you can make the data available, but then you also make yourself vulnerable by making the data available. So you need to be very careful about what data needs to be made available in open science versus what is preserved, and that's what we're talking about different privacy. So the data that is transparent as much as possible, that cannot do any harm to anyone, we should definitely make that open science. But the data that can have any harm that can be done by using the information in that data to track someone or to have, say, some kind of security threat. So for that reason, we should be careful not to make the data available. And that's a global practice. So I think that's why we are moving towards this kind of attention privacy approaches, because I'm totally a big proponent myself of open science and done a lot of work towards that. I'm editor of a classical journal for like 10 years now. It's like one of the open science journals that promotes that. But the problem is that even in the open science journal, sometimes we get the articles where the data cannot be published online openly because it comes from very secure, sensitive projects, right? So I think we have to look at both sides. But at the same time, just to quickly wrap up the data governance framework on which the discussion started, our goal is to make it available both to not only within the government agencies, to the downstream agencies or the broadcast users, but at the same time crowdsource the data from the people, work with the communities, create this knowledge. But in civil society would be part of it in terms of the action that needs to be taken. I think that it's that action part where I think civil society can play a very much important role. And as part of that, there could be memorandum of understanding or other kinds of protocols can design to make that data sharing possible. But and that could be automated as well in a way that where we don't have to seek the permits every time. Rather, it is there, right? So it's I think we are working towards like the transparency, accessibility, and privacy and security. But you see, there are trade-offs. We have to really have manage those trade-offs very carefully so that we can actually advance, but at the same time have the security that we need. So with that, I think we are at the end of the time. It's supposed to be like a wrap-up statement. Thank you so much for this opportunity on behalf of the panel. You want to say something?
I thank all the panelists for a very